plate. Hear that crowd roar, the Angels minor league reports keeping score. 66 are swinging down in Inland Empire. Dust Devils heating up, they're reaching higher. Rocket City Trash Pandas, they're coming through. Salt Lake Bees buzzing, making their move. Dominick Lorenz breaking down the place. Halos in the infield each and every day. Prospects climbing, chasing that dream. From the minors to the majors, part of the team. Fastballs flying, big hits we see. Catch it all on the Angels minor league report each week. Oh, each week. Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty, what is up, everybody, and welcome on into another edition of the Angels Minor League Report with your host, Dominick Lorenz. It is a new month, which means we get to sit back, look back at what was the month of May, go through the players of the month in the Angels farm system. And as always, as I've promised you for these shows, we bring in a special guest. We had Todd last month to talk about the players of the month in April. And look who we have here, Mr. Fernando, the Lone Star Halo. Fernando, so good to have you along with us here tonight.
Yeah, Dominic, always great to talk baseball. You know, we always kind of get lost in conversation before we hit the record, but it's always a good thing. Love talking baseball. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So much to dive into. I know we didn't have a show last week. Things kind of got in the way, but that's just how life goes. So we got a lot of catching up to do here today. But we're going to start off at the AAA level because we got some Players of the Month awards to hand out. And as a freshly reminder to everybody watching along or listening along, remember where to follow us on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook. You know where to follow us. It's all good things. We go through each level. One player gets nominated and wins. And then at the end, we pick one wild card winner from the entire Angels farm system. So you get a grand total of 5 Players of the Month in the Angels farm system. We may be at the very bottom of Major League Baseball in farm systems, but that's okay. There are still stellar performances from top to bottom that you got to watch out for because the future of Angels baseball is in the pipeline. So, Fernando, this is your first time on the show. Are you ready, my friend?
I was born ready.
Let's do it. With 714 tickets, Bruheim, OC Dugout, and Max Market Pros all alongside for the journey. Let's kick it off. The AAA level, the Salt Lake Bees. They've had a rough start to the beginning of 2025. 23-33 as we record this show here on Tuesday, June the 3rd. 11 and a half games out of the Las Vegas Aviators, what I call the Oakland A's affiliates deal. I know a lot of people get butthurt by Oakland, so this is a trending question here. Fernando, what do you call the Athletics?
I've been calling the Sacramento A's a lot.
Okay, so he's going the politically correct answer, Sacramento A's.
I mean, technically, they're just the Athletics right now.
Technically, yes. But we don't do technically here at Halos in the Info. We beat by our own drum. You know, for the fans, by the fans. So if it's the A's, if it's Sacramento, if it's Oakland, whatever you want to call them, that's what we do it. So it's the Aviators. They're a AAA affiliate that's in first. Last week, the Bees swept away. They took a very rough 6-game skid. It's just been tough sledding. Again, AAA is known for high offensive games and playing on the road against the Mariners affiliate, the Tacoma Rainiers, losing in all 6 games. But star performances in the month of May, and let's dive into it. Automatically, why not start as good as it gets? And we're going to go to the Angels' number 1 prospect, Christian Moore. He gets the call up from Rocket City to AAA Salt Lake, and he goes all gas, no brakes. I don't know if it's a change of scenery. I know every player kind of goes through that once in a while in their career. But looking at the month of May in general between both levels, in 24 games, batted .295, 13 RBIs, and a home run. And this is a completely different guy from the month of April when he struggled at AA, batting just .219 with 11 RBIs. And at one point in the month of April, through the first 2.5, 3 weeks, he was batting below the Mendoza line around the 170 mark. So Christian Moore, we'll dive more into the stats here momentarily, but the Angels' number 1 prospect getting AAA, even though he only played 12 games half a month of May with AAA, he gets Player of the Month rankings. Fernando, what do you think about Christian Moore? Not only his performance, but the Angels' decision to call him up, even though he was having a rough Double-A start to the season.
Well, it's hard to argue with his ability to get on base right now. The guy has an OBP close to 500, right? It's currently at 456 where we currently sit. So, I mean, when you're flirting on with getting on half of the time, that shows your ability to, A, extend at bats. And what's the important thing about being a major leaguer? Having good, selective at bats, right? You can't teach patience a lot of times. You got it or you don't. Maybe you can learn to lay off certain pitches, but some guys simply aren't patient, right? You look at guys like Luis Arias or, growing up, guys like Tony Gwynn, some of the most patient hitters in the world. And you think of guys like Joey Gallo, Adam Dunn. Those guys aren't patient. So it's nice to see that Christian Moore is getting more and more patient. And even last year, actually, his on-base percentage when he was in Inland Empire for what was it, like
4 or 5 games? he and Shonowell were there for, in their respective times for less than a week.
Yeah, I think maybe to eat Baker's Twin Kitchens like once or twice.
Yes.
And that was about it. Yeah, but even in his short professional start to his career last year after getting drafted, his on-base percentage was great. It was 400 with Inland Empire, 374 with Rocket City. We already talked about his struggles to start this year. So I have no idea what went into the decision to call him up. A lot of people speculate, well, the Angels are obviously thinking about moving Luis Rengifo soon. Maybe they're getting some calls. We don't exactly know what's going on behind the scenes. But a lot of people thought that could have been it, right? Hey, they're going to call him up to the AAA level. They're going to see how he's doing there. Because if Christian Moore is killing it at AAA, which, by the way, just in case you missed it, he is, like Dominick said, he is killing it right now. Maybe it makes it a little easier to part with a guy like Luis Rengifo, right?
It's an interesting case. And before we hit the record button, we can talk baseball and life all day. But we were talking about the trade deadline of, tonight as we record right now, the Angels, pick up the series win against the Red Sox in extra innings, 4-3. Just 4.5 games out of first place in the American League West, which is the worst division in Major League Baseball, which is kind of shocking to say. But there is hope. And regardless if it's real hope, delusional hope, or whatever you want to call it, the Angels may have to make moves regardless if it's for good or for not so good in the next, month and a half. Trade deadline's the end of July, first, day of August, whenever the kind of floating day happens in about 8 weeks. But the Angels are in a situation where they have a lot of guys that can play the infield position right now. Rengifo, Moncada, even though he's on the injured list right now, Zach Neto, who's not going anywhere, Kingery, Newman, Chris Taylor, who's a multi-purpose outfield, infield utility player, and of course Nolan Shonowell at first. So you have plenty of options, and that's where the Angels could say, okay, if we're going to call Christian Moore up, A, he's going to need at-bats. You're not just going to call him up to have 1 game a week, and that's kind of going to hurt his development and get a little taste of the majors at some point. So for me, the move of calling up Double-A to Triple-A for Christian Moore, a tad bit of a head scratcher, because I know he did so well with Rocket City last year. Like, he first came out of the scene, 8th overall pick out of Tennessee, and he lit up Rocket City into their playoff push. So maybe they're probably taking that into consideration as well and saying, okay, pitchers here in this Southern League have figured you out from last year to this year. Let's get you to a fresh face, new place, new pitchers, MLB-ready pitchers, and see how you can develop from this point on. And again, let's break down the numbers. Just at Salt Lake in 12 games, as the Bees are playing right now, so we won't count tonight's stats, but he's batting .362 with the home run, 10 RBIs, 8 walks. This is the number that is a little triggering. 16 strikeouts in 12 games, so you want to limit the strikeouts a little bit, but 17 hits in 47 at-bats through 12 games. So numbers don't lie. And I think we've seen it a little bit with Caden Dana a little bit, as he's kind of ping-pong back and forth between Angels and Bees. I'm hoping, this is my hope, and Fernando, you can agree or disagree with me on this one. If the Angels were to call Christian Moore up at some point this year, I hope if it's later in the year if the Angels have the elimination next to them and not in too high pressure, like, hey, we're 2 games out of a wild card slot. Let's go bring Christian Moore up and throw his feet to the fire. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but also Christian Moore, when he got drafted, did say that he likes the competitive nature of it.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, this is a guy that was just part of a national championship team, right?
True.
With
Very
Tennessee.
true. Yep.
So he has been in pressure situations, and he was arguably one of the biggest reasons why Tennessee did what they did.
Correct.
So who knows? Maybe he might thrive in that situation. But here's the thing, right? If you call him up, it is going to be because you make some kind of move. Maybe it's DFAing Kingery, Newman, who knows? Maybe it's trading Rengifo. Maybe it's trading Moncada at the deadline. That's something people aren't talking about either, right? He has an expiring contract. If you're getting some calls from him, I'm definitely considering it because he's a free agent, right, after this year. So perhaps one of those moves being made, you call Christian Moore up, and if this team's in a situation where they are still competing, Christian Moore's coming up and succeeding at the major league level, then great. And if he's not, then great. I mean, this isn't a team that's supposed to compete this year anyway, right? So if he's coming up taking meaningful at-bats, then you get to at least see what he's made of.
Yeah, I do see your point in that sense. If he is proven and he claims that he's ready, and I know the Angels take into players' feelings into account. We saw tonight, Ron Washington last night saying Mike Trout is our 5-6 hitter. And then Mike Trout says, no, I'm batting third tonight. He has, they have those internal conversations, and it's not just at the major league level. You're seeing it, especially with these top prospects like the Moores, like the Danas, like everybody else in that top 5, top 10 realm. So I can see the Angels doing that. I think some dominoes do indeed need to fall to make that happen. But I think A-plus effort right now for Christian Moore to take the reins of now becoming a AAA infielder in a high offensive league. When your batting average and your hitting mechanics were struggling a little bit at a very pitcher-friendly league of AA, the Southern League, and you're proving that you're not a fluke where, I batted well for 4 games and I'm going to hit my skid. No, you've kept it up for now 2+ weeks, and now looking into a brand new week of games here this week to keep extending it. My hope, I know we have a lot of high hopes for the 8th overall pick from last year, and a friendly reminder, the Angels have the number 2 pick in the MLB draft next month, leading into All-Star Weekend, Sunday, July 13th. Now, as we get closer to that, we'll probably have a roundtable discussion for the MLB draft in regards to the minor league. So, Fernando, of course, already with your input, what is this, 13 minutes in? You get an invitation to that roundtable discussion. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Your VIP ticket is in the mail.
All right, I'll be on the lookout.
Yes. So, for me, there's a lot to love about Christian Moore. I want to put that first and foremost. A lot to love. I think we can both say confidently, you're going to see more Neto, no pun intended, up the middle for the Angels in the future. That's going to be the Angels' formidable infield. Christian Moore at second and Zach Neto at short. I think there's no going back at that with the way they've progressed, both of those players.
Yeah, and that's something that I think Angels fans should definitely be excited for. Really, there is a lot that is already starting to materialize here with this franchise long-term, right? I don't think Matthew Lugo is that far off. Nelson Rada is probably about 2 years away. So in about 2 or 3 years, which is really in theory when this window is supposed to start opening, right? In theory, next year, we should really be talking about meaningful gains in September.
Yep.
We're hoping that happens this year, but next year, definitely. And then by 2027, that's when this window's wide open, baby. Anybody who is waiting for a time, that is really when prime time should be hitting for these Angels. That's when all these guys should be up there. And Christian Moore is going to be a big piece of it.
So you're saying by 2027, the pain will go away?
You never know with this organization, but
it's a rough one. Well, Christian Moore gets our player of the month for the month of May for the Salt Lake Bees, even though he only played 12 games coming into tonight as Salt Lake is hosting the Round Rock Express at the Pacific Coast League level. Let's drop it down to the AA level. We'll take a board of flight from Salt Lake to Rocket City, Alabama. And Fernando, he just spoke of a name that is foreshadowing a little bit. Angels' number 6 prospect of their top 30 according to MLB Pipeline. We're giving this Player of the Month award to Nelson Rada. Nelson Rada, who had a fantastic season pretty much in 2023 with Inland Empire, last year with Rocket City. This year, again, like Christian Moore, got off to a very, very slow start, but he has picked things up. Overall this year, a 287 average, 12 RBIs. I love this stat. This is like my pride and joy when I play baseball. 25 stolen bases. What a great number in just 50 games. He's averaging 1 stolen base every other game this year. Putting him at the top of the lineup in the future for the Angels is going to be huge to get on and start driving him in. But let's break down the numbers, because how did he get from where he was then to where he was now? Well, at the end of last week, because remember, minor league baseball, 6 games in a week, Tuesday through Sunday. At the end, the 19-year-old, right there, 19 years of age. I'm 30. I'll reveal my age. I was in 6th grade going to 7th grade when this kid was born. Scares me enough. He had 24 stolen bases and a .414 on base percentage, leading the Southern League 4 days ago, and he was on an 8-game hitting streak, wrapping up last week's action. Just incredible numbers so far. Again, Fernando, you mentioned him just a little bit ago about the future of where the Angels should be by 2027. Nelson Rada, where does he fit into this picture? Because I think he's starting to heat up here in 2025.
Well, I guess fortunately for him, unfortunately for us at the major league level, there isn't a lot of legitimate hope right now in the outfield, right? Long term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have Trout who's locked up in theory for what, the next, so 2030.
2030, 2031, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, he's here for a while, right? There's really nobody in center field long term. There's really nobody in left field right now. So you'd like to think that Matthew Lugo is going to get one of those spots. You'd like to think that Rada is going to get one of those spots, and we'll see what they do during the draft, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe they draft somebody in the 2nd round, and all of a sudden, the way Perry drafts, that guy is now taking left field or center tomorrow.
Yep.
So, you know, you never know what you're going to get here with the Angels. But I think Rada has a very clear path. In theory, there is nobody blocking him because, yeah, I mean, Joe Adell is probably just a placeholder here for a little bit, right? Yep. Taylor Ward is here for the remainder of this year and next year. And that is assuming he does not get traded, because you know that Perry's getting calls about Taylor Ward. There is a lot of value in a left fielder who's going to give you average defense and who's going to hit about 25 over the fence. You're going to get calls from teams like the Padres, the Yankees, some teams that need a little bit of help out there in the outfield in some of those positions. So if Ward does get traded, or, you know, who knows, Adele gets traded or whatever, DFA, who knows, that's when you probably think to yourself, okay, maybe Rada's going to get called up right now. Maybe the team wants to see what he can do. Maybe they're going to give Lugo the keys to the kingdom. I'm not sure. But I do see a place where Rada is going to be up here sooner rather than later.
And it's crazy because it just 5'9", 185 pounds, 19 years old. His birthday is August 24th. So he's not going to be 20 for a couple more months. So late, the latter stages of the 2025 season. But I'm enjoying the splits. 240 in the month of April with 14 walks and 5 RBIs. He then transitions to the month of May batting .325 with 18 walks. That's another stat I like. Not only does he steal bases and he gets hits, he's a slap hitter, singles, doubles, not a power hitter, but he does draw a lot of walks, patient at the plate, and his on-base numbers really prove that, because right now, his on-base, even batting .240 in the month of April, had a .356 on-base percentage. It bumped up over 100 points, .467 in the month of May. So very good numbers. Even if he's not hitting well, he's still finding a way to get on base and be threatening on the base paths. And I think this is a guy, when I saw him with the Inland Empire 66ers back in 2023, he was a center fielder by trade, but they utilized him all around the outfield. So if you need a placeholder in right, center, left, whatever you need him for on that day, he is very versatile in that sense. So as you bring up Adele being a placeholder, what the Angels are going to do with Taylor Ward, Mike Trout when he's not DHing, if he's playing right field, the Monopoly juggle game that goes on. I think this is a player where you might see the Angels pump the brakes on him a little bit just because of the age factor, 19 years old. You know, MLB is very different from Double A. And I could honestly see the Angels leaving him at Double A for the majority of this year, giving him his age 20 season next year at Triple A and saying, okay, if you bat well and you play well at Triple A, maybe in 2026 at the end of, at post All-Star break this time next year, maybe getting the call up if the dominoes fall of Taylor Ward not here anymore. Joe Adell could be on his way out. Certain situations will have to play, but I definitely agree with you 100% of the way. The path for Nelson Rada to take at least one outfield spot with the Angels' active roster as early as mid next year is completely in his hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not completely crazy nowadays to see guys make their major league debut at 20, right? I mean, years ago when we were growing up, I'm 30 also, you would never really see guys at 19, 20 making major league debuts. That was crazy. That was unheard of.
Yeah.
But, now you got phenomenons like Juan Soto, who made their, major league debuts at that age and turned out to be one of the most dominant major leaguers of our lifetimes. This guy signed a contract in 2022. What were you doing at 2022, folks? What were you doing while he was, 15, 16?
Yeah.
Well, he was batting .311 for our rookie league team.
Yeah.
He's really hasn't had any terrible years. I mean, last year his batting average was a little bit low, but the on-base percentage was still good. His on-base percentage is one of the things I like. You did a great job describing his style. Very slap happy, which is good because that's what this team needs, right? They need speedsters. They need guys who are going to disrupt the rhythm of the starting pitcher via a leadoff, a big lead at first base. Nobody can get back. Maybe it's actually stealing a base. Maybe it's pass ball. We don't really have anyone right now who's a speedster. That's the one thing that's missing right now on this major league roster. You have some guys that have decent speed. Joe Adell has some pretty good speed, but I certainly wouldn't say that he's a speedster out there anymore.
Yeah.
He doesn't play with that kind of grit like he did when he first came up. So hopefully a guy like Rada could be that for these Angels, especially in the outfield. That'll be fun to see in a couple of years when he does come up.
And my final thought on Nelson Rada before we hit the halfway mark on the show this week and get to a little bit of sponsorship love here, as we always do on the Angels Minor League Report. I always love player comparisons. We talk about Nelson Rada and all the intangibles that he has and the walks and the hits and the slap hitting and the speed. There's one specific Angels player from current or past that I immediately merge them together. Sean Figgins. I think Nelson Rada is going to be the next heir apparent to Sean Figgins. Figgins was that leadoff guy, speedster, gone on base. I think Figgins, I'd have to look deep into the stats of his most home runs in a single season, but I don't think Sean Figgins ever had double-digit home runs in a single season. I know Fernando will check that out as I say that right now, but this is my case for Nelson Rada being very similar to Sean Figgins. Again, besides the slap and the stolen bases, I think he has that shorter, stockier body type with that speed, but it's also a by any means necessary. It's more team than personal records or situations. And as we remember, Sean Figgins played a lot of third base, played a lot of infield, but he was also a lot of outfield as well. So when you have that versatility, I think you can really see somebody like Nelson Rada fall into that Sean Figgins mentality. And even though Sean Figgins was a switch-handed hitter back in the day, Nelson Rada coming from the left side, the Angels breed left-handed hitting a lot nowadays.
Now, the answer you so desperately seek was you are correct. He never hit double digits. Okay. The most he ever hit was 9, and that was 2006.
And what scares me was that I believe that is the year, or the second year. Nelson Rada was 1. Nelson Rada was 1. So
we are old, my friend. We are at that age.
So when Sean Figgins hit 9 home runs, Figgins did his job. He was number 9, hit 9 home runs. Good for him. Here comes Nelson Rada ascending in birth and could be the next heir apparent to Sean Figgins. You never know what can happen, but that's what I'm going to keep and hope for Nelson Rada moving forward. But thoughts on Rocket City? Very, very tough stretch. Normally, they have been one of the mainstays at AA Southern League their first 2 years in business. 19-31 this year, 8.5 games out of first behind the Birmingham Barons, which is the White Sox affiliate. They have won 6 of their last 10, or pardon, 6 in their last 10, so 6-4 record. So kind of going in the right direction again, just like Rada, just like Christian Moore, a very rough April, but looking to get on into May and now into the month of June and kind of find out some winning ways for the Rocket City Trash Pandas. But for us right now, for Dominick of Catella Chronicles, Fernando, Halos in the Infield, we're going to step aside for just a moment and give a little love to our sponsors, 714 Tickets, Bruheim, the OC Dugout, and Max Market Pros here that sponsor the network for the fans, by the fans, because we still got more Halos in the Infield, Angels Minor League Report Players of the Month of May here for you right after this.
Brought to you by 714 Tickets in Anaheim, your trusted source for Angels tickets at unbeatable prices with no hidden fees. Whether it's home or away, they've got your seat covered. Visit them at 2424 East Catella Avenue, Anaheim, or online at 714tickets.com. Mention HITI and get 10% off your purchase. And Bruheim, Anaheim's premier craft brewery, pouring fresh, locally brewed beers in a welcoming atmosphere for Angels fans and beer lovers alike. Stop by their tap room at 1931 East Wright Circle, Anaheim, or check them out at Bruheim.com. Mention HITI and get 10% off your tab. The OC Dugout, your one-stop shop for officially licensed Angels memorabilia, custom jersey framing, and exclusive autograph signings with your favorite players. Visit them at 1928 East Center Street, Anaheim, or online at theocdugout.com. Support the businesses that support Halos in the Infield.
Yes, indeed. Support the businesses that support us here at Halos in the Infield. Can't believe it. Episode number 11 of the Angels Minor League Report is myself and Fernando in the house today covering the Angels Minor League Report. And it's a special episode, of course. We've hit the new month of June. We're looking back at the month of May. We gave Christian Moore the AAA Player of the Month award, Nelson Rada for AA. And now we're going to take a flight from Alabama all the way back west to the Pacific Northwest of Washington as we go to the Tri-City Dust Devils. And can't believe I'm saying this because they've struggled the last couple of years. This is the best minor league team record-wise for the Angels here in 2025. And how apropos, 25-25 record coming into tonight. Just a game and a half behind the Hillsboro Hops, which is the Arizona Diamondbacks affiliate in the Northwest League. So competitive baseball up in the Pacific Northwest. And for the first time tonight, we're going to get the shoulder going. We have a pitcher being named to the month of May Player of the Month. And yet again, another top 30 prospect according to MLB-pipeline.com. It's the right-hander. He's number 8 in the Angels system. Chris Cortez, the 22-year-old who's 1-1 with a 3.08 ERA in 10 starts this year. 49 2/3 innings pitched. And I'll just give you a little taste of his May numbers so far. No official record, which for me, I could care less about pitchers' records because it's all hitters based. 6 appearances, a 2.01 ERA. Very nice performances from Chris Cortez. Fernando, just starting off with Cortez himself and having a strong year at Tri-City.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. For anybody who's ever going to be watching your minor league report, which we encourage you to do every single week, but whenever you're tuning in and you listen to yourself like, well, hey man, this guy's won 2 games and lost 10. That's terrible. Guys with the minor leagues, you can never pay attention to wins and losses because in the minors, truly they don't matter. These pitchers are working on various things, right? It's really a never-ending spring training when you're down to the minors, right? If Dominick is trying to develop a split finger, they're going to tell him, hey, throw your splitter 75% of the time. Sometimes those hitters are going to sit on there, right? Because these guys are also trying to get to the next level, right? Nobody's up there taking free at-bats. These guys want to get to the next level. So with that being said, sometimes you are more susceptible to maybe a higher ERA, but teams don't necessarily look at that because a lot of times we'll get people who are like, well, why are the Angels calling up this guy? His ERA is 5. Okay, well, you don't know that the Angels wanted him to work on this pitch. The Angels think the movement's great, which is why they're calling him up, right? They think the pitch is developed properly and it's going to do well at the major league level. So that's the kind of stuff you have to look at the minor league levels, especially in the lower levels like this. I'm excited to see what we get out of Chris Cortez. This is also a kid. He's 22 years old, so I'm certainly not going to say he's young like some of these minor leaguers. He's no Nelson Rada. He had a full amount of time to develop at the college level. So, he might be a quick riser. Perry does like these guys who are 21 to 23 years old. That way they can make a pretty quick leap. Chris Cortez might be no exception. This guy was drafted last year. He was the second-round pick last year, 45th overall. So we could potentially be seeing Chris Cortez, I would say maybe next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets called up to maybe as high as AAA this year. But I like what I've seen out of this kid so far. I'm liking the video packages I've seen. It seems to have pretty good stuff.
And his best start in the month of May was back on May the 18th at home against Hillsborough. And this was his shining star moment of the season, a quality start, 6 innings, 1 run. It was unearned on 1 hit, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. So a very nice performance. No decision on that day, but overall 27 strikeouts in the month of May in 31 1/3 innings pitched. This is a guy, as you mentioned, second-round pick just under Christian Moore last season, the 8th prospect in the Angels farm system. And with 46 total strikeouts this season and a whip of 1.35, which is maybe a tick above average at this point. They try to keep you to 1 to 1.2. Anything under 1 is phenomenal in that case scenario. But again, minor league baseball is like extended spring training. You're going to get your work in, you're going to get your innings. And that's something I've enjoyed from Cortez so far. Every outing so far this season, with the exception of 2, his very first start on April 6th, which everybody typically goes 3 to 4 innings at the first start of the year, and his last start on May the 30th, he has gone 5 or more innings in all but 2 of his starts this season. So innings eater, quality start kind of guy. And I think if you kind of mature up a little bit, 22 years old, I think you kind of grit your teeth at the high A level. You're kind of the formidable leader on this staff as well, with the guy we're going to not give a Player of the Month award to, but we're going to give Angel fans an update, somebody who we saw in the bullpen, and go back to Tri-City in a moment, in Ryan Johnson, that Chris Cortez can, and not only him, but the rest of the pitching staff at Tri-City can kind of pick the brain of Ryan Johnson, who was just drafted last year as well, played no minor league games last season, went straight to spring training, straight to the Halos bullpen, and then boom, I'm back at the high A level, but to be lengthened out as a starter. So I think Chris Cortez has the ceiling is exceptionally high on this kid. And I think there's going to be, big opportunities for him moving forward. I agree with you. I could definitely, I don't know about AAA. Depends on, how the innings eating helps. But I would say for sure he's got to get to AA. Again, the Angels love sending pitchers to the AA level. Very pitcher-friendly league out there in Alabama. I think if the numbers hold up, by the time you get to that halfway mark, the 66th game of the season, which is near the end of the month here in June, 4th of July weekend, welcome to AA Rocket City. I would like to see that for his progression and development.
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I want to see him work on is his walks. Now, his first outing was really the biggest one. Gave up 6 walks there. Besides that, a lot of 1-walk games in April. He did have a 4-game walk at the end of April as well. But besides that, he seems to be around the 4-3 walks, as you can tell. 4-3, not terrible, right? I mean, at the major league level, that's probably about the max of where you want to be, right? Because nowadays, most guys aren't going over, what's fair, Dominic, about 80 to 90 pitches nowadays at the major league level.
Yeah, you start getting the hook around 85, 90, unless you're lucky, It just it depends on the situation, base runners, inherited runners, so on and so forth.
Yeah, but I mean, nowadays you can count on one hand how many pitchers are hitting triple digits for the Angels, by the end of the year.
Yep.
It doesn't happen too often anymore. So, can he find ways to be more effective, maybe more selective with certain pitches? And that's the kind of thing you want to work on in the lower minors, right? What is your strikeout pitch? What can you use as a strikeout pitch? Or maybe you're not a strikeout pitcher. That's what these lower minors are for, trying to figure out how to refine your game, because what worked in college probably isn't going to work in professionals. And what works in low A, I know that he's only been in high A, isn't going to work at, double A, triple A, etc. So, he needs to try to figure out the exact pitcher he's going to be. But yeah, his walks seem to be progressively getting better, right? When you see 6 walks with 2.2 innings pitched, that's a bit of a red flag, right? But once again, it's the first outing of the year. No one's expecting you to throw a no-hitter in the first outing. They're not even going to let you. You're not going to get past the third, fourth inning anyway. But if he can continue to keep his walks at bay, I think he could continue to move up the ladder and double A, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and for those watching and listening here to the episode today, Fernando and I are on the same wavelength. We're on my little notepad next to me with all the names. Next to Cortez, I had the word refinement. And Fernando literally takes the word refining out of the mouth right there. So see, we are in sync no matter what here on another episode of the Angels Minor League Report. Let's give you that quick little minuscule update on Ryan Johnson, the Angels bullpen arm. Started the year in the back end of the bullpen for the Angels, going back down to high A Tri-City to kind of be lengthened out as a starter. So far in 4 starts, 0-1 with a 2.93 ERA, not horrible numbers. And if you how would you take those numbers right away? And with those numbers, I'm going to pull up his last start was one of his better outings in this sense. Do you see him coming back to the Angels in any capacity this season? I think that's the bigger question that I would pose to you, Fernando, is do you think Ryan Johnson at any point comes back, if it's a starter, if it's a bullpen piece for the Angels, and that start that I mentioned, 6 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, and this is the barn burner, 10 punch-outs against the Eugene Emeralds last week on May the 31st. For the Tri-City Dust Devils. So, Fernando, what do you think of kind of this resurgence now for Ryan Johnson, having that MLB experience and now being lengthened out as a starter?
You know what? I don't mind that they're going to, send him down to become a starter, but what they need to stop doing is kind of herky-jerking some of these guys around, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get innings out of some of these guys. I mean, we see it with Sam Alderghetti right now. We saw it with Caden Dana. Trying to fill out spots of the bullpen. If they're going to call up Ryan Johnson to be part of the bullpen, I won't be a fan of that. You call him down to work on his stuff, try to make him a starter. Now, if he's succeeding at being a starting pitcher, which as of right now, he's done pretty well. He's still in the very, very early going, I must say. Mm-hmm. But don't call him up, right? Don't unless you're going to call him up. You're going to leave him a bullpen pitcher because, we give it a shot. We don't think he's going to have what it takes long term to be a starter. And you're going to keep him at the major league level to be a bullpen arm. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
But you got to figure out what you're going to do with these kids. I mean,
It's, it's interesting territory because I know, again, we've talked about it at nauseam before with Perry Manassi and loving to play the herky-jerky game of up, down, up, down, up, down. But regardless of how it looks, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that if the Angels get into contention in July and August and they need some health out of that bullpen, that Ryan Johnson, you're playing well, or the Angels have a doubleheader or a spot start situation mentality comes up. Right now, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx anything, but the Angels starting rotation has been healthy this season. And, the Angels really, with the exception of the bullpen having to make some adjustments, not so much due to injury, but more so due to overuse this season. That's been the issue with the Angels' entire pitching staff. It's just been more, we've used you too much. We need to get somebody fresh. And that's kind of been the kind of musical chairs game so far. But I like what I see from Ryan Johnson. I think the strikeout numbers are going to come. He's got great electric stuff. We saw it out of the bullpen this year, even though the command was the biggest problem. But again, coming right out of college and not playing a single minor league game and literally being thrown into the fire, I think he did as well as he could for the situation he was put in coming out of spring training. And that's not a knock to him or the Angels. I think they were just trying to probably find strike while the iron's hot coming out of spring training.
Absolutely. They're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. And for a little while they did. I mean, they maybe left him in a little too much on opening day there in Chicago. But overall, he pitched pretty well that day, all things considered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They really just threw him in the deep end, not knowing how to swim.
Yeah. So there's your little update on Ryan Johnson, folks. I think, keep an eye on him. He is going to be somebody. He is currently the Angels' number 7 prospect, according to MLB-pipeline.com. So a light to love from the pitching side of things at the high A Tri-City Dust Devils level. Bringing it back, we're going to drop it down to Southern California, the Inland Empire 66ers, having a tough time having the stellar spot of the California League, not only in the Cal League South, but in the entire California League, entering today's play, 16-35, and it doesn't help when the Dodgers affiliate, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, are absolutely crushing the entire league, i.e. 17 games back of first. And a friendly reminder, this is the final year the Inland Empire 66ers will be an Angels affiliate. There'll be musical chairs with the brand new team coming into Ontario, California. This is your reminder. The Dodgers will move from Rancho to Ontario. The Angels will go from San Bernardino back to Rancho, where they were back in the 2000 Jared Weaver, Howie Kendrick, Eric Ibar, Mike Napoli days of minor league baseball. And then the Seattle Mariners affiliate, the Modesto Nuts, will move to San Bernardino. So the Mariners will control San Bernardino, California. So not a great start to the final year of San Bernardino baseball. However, there is a good player right now in the month of May, and that is Jorge Ruiz. And Jorge Ruiz, a 20-year-old outfielder batting .299 this year, a home run, 18 RBIs, and for a very tough month of May, where Inland Empire had a streak of 3 wins within 3 weeks, a very tough stretch to end the month of May. I think Jorge Ruiz did an exceptional job. He batted .310 in the month of April, .307 in the month of May, and team leader in RBIs with 10 in the month of May with 10 walks. And I would say 27 hits and 88 plate appearances. You're doing something right on a team that is struggling right now on all phases of the game.
Yeah. Once again, I like 19 walks. Not bad. On base percentage of .369, batting nearly .300, .299 there. It doesn't really have much of a speed game. He's only got six steals. Yes, there you go. I did remember that. There you go. Yes. Fernando was right on the spot.
Boom.
Jorge Ruiz. It's very early to see what's going to come out of this kid. Still early on in his career. But as of right now, it's been a little bleak down there. And with the 66ers, Jorge Ruiz has been a bright spot. Bridger Holmes has been pretty good since he moved into the closing role. Yep. He was just on the show. He got called up for a quick swig of coffee there. Well, not sip of coffee. It's Utah. So
what, hot tea, maybe.
No, you can't. Yeah, maybe you can't have caffeine if.
It's hard.
Yeah, all right. He had some soda.
There we go.
Yeah. quick. He went a swig out there. But, so there has been a few bright spots in Inland Empire. You do have to look pretty deep. It's just so impressive, man, that I hate to give him credit, man, but that team up to 5 just keeps on finding ways to succeed no matter where they are in their with their prospects and in their minor league system. And they just continue to impress. They really do. We'll see what kind of facility they're going to get in Ontario.
It's good. Yeah. For me, where I live, I'm only about 15 minutes from both ballparks. And, it's going to be a state-of-the-art ballpark out in Ontario. So the Dodgers, I hate to say it, but they're spending money wisely. And for their farm system, I was at the game a couple of weeks ago between the Quakes and the 66ers. And I'll be perfectly honest, it was rough for the 66ers. The day before I went, the Quakes scored the most runs in franchise history with a 25-8 victory, a 13-run 8th inning. And then the next day it was followed up with a 12-8 win. In combination in 2 games, 66ers had not 1, not 2, but 8 errors. And they were not great. It was pretty routine again, with California League that used to be high A baseball, now got dropped down to low A after the COVID pandemic, or single A now. Low A is, derogatory. They've changed that term, but that's a whole nother story. It's one of those things where you get the younger youth of a development organization right now. And for somebody like Jorge Ruiz, he's been in the Angel system since 2021. A young kid signed at 16 years of age. He had played with the Inland Empire 66ers in 2023, where he batted .304. Then in 2024, batted .281 with the Sixers before getting a call up to Tri-City for 62 games. And that's where he struggled, just a 150 average in 62 games. So they said, let's pump the brakes. He's young. Let's build the confidence back up and bring him back down to Inland Empire to start 2025. And again, through 46 games, a .299 average, a .369 on base percentage, .401 slug, and a .770 OPS. Like Fernando said, extremely young, a lot of work to be done. I think the only thing that I think both of us could agree on for Inland Empire, just get some wins. Get back to doing the basics. I think you just want to see doing the right things on the diamond, pitching, hitting. I know you guys talked to Bridger Holmes last week or a week ago, and he kind of talked about his progression from Inland Empire and throughout his career thus far. Great insight there. I know we'll probably have him back on the show at some point this season. But it's a journey. And for somebody who's, again, in Ruiz's case, 20 years old, that journey, even though you've been in the Angel system for four plus years now, it begins. And it's a brand new day. Each day you kind of go about your business. So Jorge Ruiz gets the Inland Empire 66ers single A player of the month, which comes to the finale of this show today. As we always love to do it, 1 from each team, but we got to make it a nice uneven number of 5 because we're weird here at Halos in the Infield. For the fans, by the fans. That's what we love to do. So we're going to look up and down, AAA, AA, high A, and single A, and see who gets the wild card winner of the month. And it's a guy who has indeed had a cup of coffee with the Angels for a little bit. And we're going to go on the return flight back to Salt Lake City to the Bees. And it's the right-handed pitcher in Victor Mederos. Mederos not in the Angels' top 30 prospects right now, but overall this season, a 3-4 record, a 3.22 ERA through 50 and a third innings pitched. And he had a very, very strong month of May, 3-1 with a 2.45 ERA in 5 appearances. We've seen him start. We've seen him come out of the pen for the Angels. Again, the herky-jerky back-and-forth action. What do the Angels do with Victor Mederos now as he gets the wild card player of the month?
I guess now you just got to wait to see what exactly he can be, right?
Yeah.
You called him up for a single game at the major league level. That was in Minnesota?
At home against Minnesota, yeah.
That was
or in Minnesota. In Minnesota, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, he's 23? Scroll up.
23 years old, and he is the 6th round pick of 2022 out of Oklahoma State.
Yes. So, he's definitely starting to get to the point now where, in theory, you should be able to start giving him opportunities at the major level. Clearly they did. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he has another couple trips up here. Right now the Angels are having to fill out some spots in the bullpen, right? We still don't know what's going to happen long-term with Robert Stevenson. Is he going to have legitimate issues this year? Is he going to get shut down this year? So, you don't know what's going to happen in the trade deadline. You could be moving guys like Jansen in theory. He could stick around. Who knows? But the point is there's going to be potentially 1 to 2, maybe even 3 bullpen spots here and there throughout the year. Guys coming and going. That's just how the bullpens work nowadays at the major league level.
Yep.
So, I would not be surprised if Victor Mederos gets another opportunity. But I'm happy that now he had a very solid month of May at the AAA level. So hopefully when he does get that inevitable call up, that hopefully he has the opportunity to put it to good use. because we don't really have too many young, healthy pitchers that we can rely on for years to come out of that bullpen. Obviously, we thought we had Ben Joyce. Unfortunately, he did have some arm injuries. He did get that surgery procedure, so he's out for the year. But one of these guys, a couple of these guys, hopefully going to come up here and help this bullpen for years to come, because Dominic, right now, our bullpen in the future is looking pretty unstable.
Yeah, and luckily right now, the Angels bullpen, as of right now, present day, they are, getting by as much as they possibly can. If it's Brogdon or Burke or Kenley Jansen leading the pack, Zephyr John is hit and miss some days, but yesterday he was a hit. And, you kind of go through the motions with this Halos bullpen right now. And on a night like tonight, when the Angels, as we record, beat the Boston Red Sox in extra innings 4-3, you had Reed Detmers come into the 10th inning and 1-2-3 frame, ball game over, picks up the save. So maybe Reed Detmers, with the questions of, is Jack Kohanowitz a starter, or does he need to go back down to AAA? Does Reed Detmers get a spot in the rotation again? To me, quickly, here's my 2 cents. I want to see Reed Detmers stay at the bullpen. And I know that might come contrarian to a lot of people's feelings about him being a starter. I think, as we've seen in the sample size of those last 10 appearances out of the pen, he has looked much stronger and much more confident. Let's not wreck with the kid's confidence right now. Kohanowitz, they're going to kind of work through the lumps and bumps of his starting rotation. He's got the stuff. That changeup is nasty. That sinker is nasty. He's got the stuff. It's more efficiency, pitch count wise, that he really needs to work on at the front end of his kind of repertoire at this point. A guy that I would like to see at some point, if the Angels do need to call AAA and say, hey, we need a couple of arms, before Victor Medeiros, I'm going to give the nod. We've seen him in the bullpen. It's been a couple of years. He's battled through some injuries. Give me a little taste of Sam Bachman. I think Sam Bachman, who looked pretty good out of the bullpen when he first came up, I believe that was 2022, 2023, in that range somewhere. I liked what he did rehabbing with Inland Empire and coming back up with AAA. I would see him maybe, I don't know, transaction-wise, if he has call-ups or what they would have to do, roster-wise to get him back up to the major league level. I could see I would give Sam Bachman a shot if the path is clear where you don't have to DFA somebody and go through all the rigmarole of adjusting the roster too much.
Yeah, when Sam Bachman was drafted, he was a guy who people were saying, hey, this guy could be a starter, or if they need him out of the bullpen, he could be ready this year. He was drafted in 2021?
He was drafted in 2021, round 1, pick 9.
Yeah, he was Perry's first draft pick.
Yes.
And obviously up to this point has not been fairly successful. And that is just due to some bad luck injuries. Yeah. But that was what Bachman was praised for. Like, hey, this guy's going to be successful coming out of a bullpen immediately. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to see that long term just due to those injuries. But like you said, the Angels are going to need some help here in the bullpen. I would certainly not mind him hopefully having a healthy go of it this time around and getting legitimate chance to prove that, you know what, this guy is something or he's not going to be something, because we're now 4 years into the Sam Bachman experiment. Yeah. And we really haven't gotten to see much of him in those 4 years.
No, not at all. And looking at his numbers this year in 10 rehab appearances, well, I guess you don't want to call Salt Lake because he's been there consistently, but still, we'll call it in 10 appearances this year, 2 with Inland Empire, 8 with Salt Lake. He has combined to go 0-1 with a 0.96 ERA, all 10 appearances out of the pen, and a grand total of 9 1/3 innings so far this season. So overall, numbers don't lie in that sense. And strikeout totals, just 6 strikeouts and no walks, 1 intentional walk. So I would say the numbers, again, small sample size, just less than 10 innings of work this year. They're limiting him just 1. They're not doing the whole middle relief. You can do 3 innings. It's fine. Take your time. I think if Sam Bachman can get healthy, provide some innings, I think this could be a nice formidable threat that the Angels can maybe utilize at some point, if it's not this year, but definitely for sure. If he can stay healthy this year and into the offseason, this is a guy that has a lockdown bullpen job next year, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You know, in an avenue where maybe the Angels get another closer, or maybe it is hopefully a guy like Ben Joyce next year if he's able to come back healthy. You could have Bachman, Stevenson, and Joyce, you know, at the back end of a bullpen. You could do much worse.
You could re-sign Kenley Jansen.
You could re-sign Caden Dana.
You
And
never
then
know what
we're
can
talking
happen.
about 4 potential high leverage guys with good stuff on the back end of the bullpen. Those are the kind of guys you want, right? Because
Yeah.
we especially know the Angels don't like using guys more than back-to-back days. So even better, you have one of those other 3. You know, I don't mind trusting Ben Joyce in theory twice a week, potentially to get a save for me.
Yep.
I mean, maybe that's Sam Bachman can slot into the setup guy in those days. So, you know, we'll see what we get.
And it does sound, you know, it's tantalizing at that point, you know, not to think too much into next year because the Angels are still battling this year, but a back end of the bullpen of healthy, you know, when healthy and when at the top of their game, Bachman, Stevenson, Joyce, and if they re-sign Kenley Jansen, that's a nice meaty back end of your bullpen that can be utilized a lot of the time. And to your point, Fernando, just to, you know, we'll prove you wrong here for a minute. Angels don't use guys back-to-back nights. What did they do tonight? Well, they used Neris and Jansen back-to-back nights and Detmers as well. So.
Well, I meant the most they'll ever do is back-to-back nights. Like you hardly ever see guys go 3 straight games or more.
You know, with you know what I'm going to say? I'll put a hot take out there. Day game tomorrow. Go for the gusto. If you're going for the sweep of Boston in a place where he's played before, Kenley Jansen closes it out tomorrow. Why not? You get an off day Thursday. He can rest. He'll want it. Give me Kenley Jansen 3 days in a row. Why not?
Well, you know that Ryan Washington's probably not on the same wavelength as you, but hey, if the Angels have an opportunity to slam the door, I would do it because you have that built-in day off.
Yep.
So
utilize it for yourself instead of against you. That's the key where we're trying to go to here. But
from your lips to God's ears, my friend.
God, let's hope at this point. But that'll do it for this episode of the Angels Minor League Report with yours truly, Dominick Lorenz of Catella Chronicles, and our guest today, Fernando, the Lone Star Halo. Thanks so much for coming on the program. We've awarded Christian Moore, Nelson Rada, Chris Cortez, Jorge Ruiz, and Victor Medeiros, the 5 Angels Minor League Players of the Month for the month of May. We do this the first show of the brand new month. We will have, looking back at the previous month, so that first Tuesday, we'll just say first week of July, we will talk about what went on in the minor league system in the month of June. But we here at Halos in the Infield, for the fans, by the fans, appreciate you following us along on every platform, YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook. Cheers to the sponsors, 714 Tickets, Bruheim, the OC Dugout, and Max Market Pros. Everybody along for the ride here this season. So much more good stuff to come. Fernando, tell the people about, you know, everything you got going on, Mr. You know, Lone Star Halo, the Halo Hoedown. You know, I always nickname it something else, but give me the proper name because I always like to have my fun little nickname for it because we're both country people.
The Halo Hot Take Hoedown. So we have all kinds of stuff on the network. You guys already know. James has the Around the League show. Dominic has the Minor League Report. We have the Halo Hot Take Hoedown. Of course, Todd and I have the Lone Star Halo show every single week. So make sure you do that. Make sure you follow us on our socials. Make sure you follow Catella Chronicles. You guys already know how it is. You guys already know. I mean, if you're listening to this, you probably already follow us.
Exactly. Well, for a great show today, A+ effort from Fernando and myself. Fernando, your VIP ticket is in the mail. You are back on the show whenever you want to come on along. That's going to be a fun time. You are in the exclusive club with Mr. Todd himself.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah,
appreciate that. A good company to be in.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to seeing you around the week, and we look forward to having you, the fans, back in on another episode of the Angels Minor League Report next week, as we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming by going and breaking down each week for the Angels minor league system. But until next week, enjoy the rest of your week. Cheer on the Angels as they look to sweep the Red Sox. When you listen to this, it'll be technically today or this morning at that point. And we'll see what happens after an off day and the Angels come back home to play the Mariners and the Oakland Sacramento A's Athletics at the beginning of next week as well. But for Fernando, all the way in the Lone Star State, I'm Dominick Lorenz of Catella Chronicles. Cheers to the rest of your week. be happy, be healthy, and as always, go Angels.
Catch it all on the Angels.